My seventh thesis statement or conclusion or discovery along this healing journey is that adverse childhood experiences or early life traumatic stress can disrupt attachment development. When this happens, social engagement and disengagement roles develop independently of one another. So what happens is you have this abstract brain-body blueprint, and it undergoes this process of being sculpted into specific brain-body wiring through which we personally encounter ourselves and our understanding of the world and life and reality. And there's these different social engagement and different disengagement roles, and each one has implicit neural wiring of unconscious memories stored in relation to attachment well-being, and that information affects brain-body modalities of operation, engagement, and regulation. And so what happens is adverse childhood experiences or traumatic stress experienced during early life create implicit wiring based on unfulfilled attachment needs, and then these different social engagement and or disengagement roles develop independently of one another. And so you might have the parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child here, parent-child bonding from the perspective of the caregiver here, mutual support and cooperation here, casual friendships here, emotional intimacy here, physical intimacy here, emotional health here, physical health here. And these different social engagement roles don't instinctively know how to communicate within the neural wiring that's creating an automated sense of self and understanding, instinctive understanding of life experience. And then there's social and disengagement roles, and they can hold different types of traumatic memories and bodily responses, and that information doesn't have connection with these various social engagement roles. And so all of these different roles within the neurobiological structures develop independently of one another. Neural wiring related with each of these roles does not have an instinctive ability to communicate and collaborate within the unconscious body-mind. So instead of a sense of self having access to all this neural data, this part of the sense of self has access to this neural data, this sense of self has access to this neural data, and so on. And what happens is different aspects of the self become engaged by different styles of stimulus. And so the self might feel like one person around family and might feel like a different person around friends, or might feel like one person around these types of friends and a different type of person around these kinds of people, or might feel like a different sense of self when alone versus the sense of self when socially engaging. And it's because of how the stimulus of other people activates these different social engagement and disengagement roles that engage neural data as implicit memories provide navigation regarding self and life according to attachment need fulfillment, and the activation and ignition of this neural data affects how the brain and the body know how to regulate and share energies within itself through all the various, compartments and components of this miraculous vessel we inhabit. And this creates unique order of neural wiring. These are frequently mistaken for disorders, but the truth is that there is nothing disordered about this. This is the most miraculous order that could possibly exist within neurobiological applications of consciousness. It is literally the most profound and astounding miracle. There's unique order of neural wiring. It's extraordinarily organized extraordinarily organized. Different vibrational signals, different stimulus, especially from different types of people, activate specific regions of neural wiring that engage these various social engagement and disengagement roles for optimal survival. It's a very miraculous evolutionary adaptation of the social engagement system that neurobiological wiring is developed on top of. And so it stems from attachment development, but it really relates to the entire organization of the brain-body system, from implicit neural wiring to the way that the heart beats and regulates blood flow. And so it's really, really miraculous. It's unique order of neural wiring. Uniqueorder. It's a uniqueorder. It's not a disorder, it's a uniqueorder. This explains a variety of diagnoses, from borderline personality disorder to dissociative identity disorder. These current descriptors, however, do not effectively explain the neuroscience of the experiences or provide specified directionality towards healing potentials, which is exactly what a clinical diagnosis is intended to do. Plus, it seems a little off to put the words personality and identity in the same phrase as disorder. No one is allowed to label another human being as having a disordered identity or a disordered personality. Every sense of self is unconditionally valid. Every human being is beautifully unique. A miracle in a million ways. Unique order of neural wiring does not affect identity or worth. And this truth is worthy of global recognition. The truth is that the majority of people on the planet experience some level of unique neural wiring. Adverse experiences and traumatic events, especially during early childhood, are very, very common. And honestly, any moment of disrupted attachment need fulfillment can create some form of unique neural wiring within this organization of the social engagement system. So even like one moment when you're 4 years old and you get lost in the store and you don't feel safe, that moment disrupts attachment development for an instant, and then this little portion of neural wiring doesn't achieve connectivity and continues operating independently of other data. And so it definitely ranges along a spectrum, but the truth is that the majority of people in the world experience some form of unique neural wiring within the social engagement system because of minor and or severe and occasional and or frequent or chronic attachment need fulfillment disruption that affects how neural wiring is organized within the social engagement system. To understand how unique order of neural wiring affects experiences of self and life, we need to understand where our experiences of self and life come from. And so while we're moving through our moments, the manner in which we instinctively understand who we are and the manner in which we instinctively understand the world around us and the interaction between ourselves and the world around us completely comes from the wiring of our brain-body system. If vibrational signals suddenly activate a different region of neural wiring holding different styles of information, then the experience of self and life will suddenly switch to a different area of energy than it previously was in. Neural wiring affiliated with distinct social engagement and disengagement roles is going to provide different styles of information regarding identity and experience. Let's look at an example. If someone says to someone else, "I don't like your attitude. Go to your room until I come and give you permission to come out." Who is most likely to be saying that to whom? Is it most likely a romantic partner to their lover? Is it most likely a best friend to their peer? Is it most likely a child to their parent? No, it's most likely going to be a parent saying that to a child or a caregiver saying it to a young person in their care. And so different styles of neural connectivity and data within this wiring related with these social engagement and disengagement roles will provide unique styles of navigation. And so the way that we understand this relationship with our being and how this relates to the world comes from the activation of this neural wiring. And this is why a lot of people might feel like a different sense of self around their family versus other people, because the social engagement role of parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child is being activated by the stimulus of engaging with their family, and all these other regions of neural wiring that relate with their adult self are less engaged. And so their instinctive, unconscious sense of self, unconscious interpretations of the moment, more so stem from neural wiring from early childhood related with the parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child than they have to do with more updated neural data. And especially if there was any pain that happened to create independent development of these engagement and disengagement roles, then there might be even more of an isolated experience or an independent experience over here as this neural wiring becomes activated. So another great example is unconscious sensations of superiority and inferiority. As a child, you literally look up to people. You are physically looking up to adults. They're bigger. They're a larger body. Their brain can process through complex concepts more effectively. There's this sense of they are superior, they are bigger than me, I am inferior, I am smaller than them. And it's a very unconscious sensation. And similarly, this may happen as an adult when connecting with a child. You are physically taller. You literally have to look down to them. It's not like you're looking down on them. You're physically, literally looking down at them because they're smaller. And so there may be an unconscious sensation of superiority. Even with complete respect for the child and everything, there's an unconscious sensation of I am bigger. I have more power in this situation. It's a very unconscious sensation. And so when these roles within a social engagement system develop and operate independently of one another, activation of parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child may unconsciously ignite sensations of feeling inferior or feeling small. And it's very, 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 very unconscious. You don't consciously go around like, oh my goodness, the world is a giant place and I'm a teeny child. But those sensations are unconsciously projected into experience, and it comes through very subtly in somatic sensations or backdrop emotions without an explicit explanation. It comes through in all kinds of things, and the conscious mind doesn't know it, but secretly it's because neural wiring affiliated with the parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child is independently being activated and creating uniquely individualized sensations of self and automated interpretations of the surrounding world. And those projections are creating reality from within, and it's all in relation to the perspective of a child, where the child unconsciously feels inferior because of how big everything is. And similarly, if the parent-child bonding from the perspective of the parent is independently being activated, there may be unconscious feelings of superiority. And this could manifest in like feeling the need to take care of everybody. Like it might not be like a superior thing. It might just be like, oh my goodness, like I'm a tall person and I have to take care of everybody because they're physically smaller. And it's not going to come through in that conscious narrative. That is not going to be an explicit dialogue. It comes through in sensations. So when you connect with someone, there's almost like a motherly type instinct or a caregiver type instinct, and you're like, I need to take care of this person. And it comes through in a variety of different thoughts and feelings, but in the backdrop of the unconsciousness, it's deriving from the implicit wiring within the social engagement system in relation to parent-child bonding from the perspective of the parent. Oftentimes, this is an imprint of a caregiver that was experienced during early childhood. And so if you're a child, you have this caregiver, then information gathered about this person and their manner of interacting with themselves in the world becomes imprinted into this neurobiological information and begins to create this role of parent-child bonding from the perspective of the parent, even though that has not happened yet. Like, even as a child, that social engagement role exists within the neurobiological wiring, and it's basically an imprint of the caregiver. And so the body of the child is here interacting with the caregiver, and from those experiences, energies formulate this neural data, and then there's parent-child bonding from the perspective of the parent. That's an imprint of this caregiver. And then there's parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child. That's the firsthand personal experiences during these interactions. And so this early neurodevelopment sculpts the neural wiring in relation to attachment needs, affecting brain-body operations. And as they exist and operate independently of one another, moments where the role of parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child may project feelings of being small or being inferior or being just like insecure, just things that you might feel in childhood. And because that neural wiring doesn't have connectivity with all of this other data where the body itself is like, I know I'm an adult and I can do this. If it doesn't have connectivity with that, then these projections are going to be like, oh my God, I'm a small, teeny, tiny child and the world is a terrifying, huge place. And I'm just like helplessly small. But it comes through in very abstract sensations. So you don't know that it's happening. You don't know why these feelings are coming up. And then you might even feel a little silly. Like, well, I know I'm a grown adult. I know I can do this. Why am I feeling so small and inferior and insecure right now? And it's because of the way that this neural data is activating implicit memories, providing navigation regarding self and life according to attachment well-being. But all these roles are operating independently of one another within the neurobiological organization of the social engagement system. When the neurobiological role of parent-child bonding from the perspective of the child activates independently of other roles within this neurobiological social engagement system, two distinct features unfold. The first is that implicit neural wiring, navigating identity and experience, shift towards neural data gathered from early childhood. And then that information is being unconsciously projected into reality and interpreting unfolding moments. The second occurrence is that brain-body activity may shift to early stages of neurodevelopment. That might decrease left brain activity and amplify right brain activity as one of many examples. And this can cause an infinite myriad of unique styles of personal experience. For example, solidification of self might unconsciously decrease, and the sense of self might blend with the sense of selves of other people in the surrounding area. It has to do with the way neural activity is affecting automated translations of reality. These roles within the social engagement system then continue existing, operating, and expanding independently of one another. Imagine each year adding neural wiring to the social engagement system, contributing to the development of all these different roles. If attachment well-being is continually disrupted during these continuing years, then each year creates a new layer of neural wiring for each role. And then there may be dozens or hundreds of roles within the social engagement system in relation to neural wiring as memory data that is filed in accordance with attachment well-being and then connects with various styles of brain-body operations, regulation, integrative patterns, etc. Then you may have hundreds or thousands of roles, just depending on the severity of disrupted attachment development or attachment well-being. And this can happen in a couple different ways. There may be chronic traumatic events. There may be persistent experiences that disrupt attachment well-being. Or there could be chronic traumatic stress activation. So even if there's one traumatic event during early childhood, then the social engagement system may chronically be interrupted in its development as roles develop and operate independently of one another if trauma responses from that one event are chronically activated. So even if there's one event in early childhood, the activation of that traumatic response then disrupts each year as experience adds to neural wiring, and the social engagement continues to exist, operate, and expand through independent roles. And then there could be dozens of different roles that don't instinctively have neural connectivity with one another. In addition to originally developing independently, the persistent operation and activity of these roles independently expand the independence of social engagement and disengagement roles. So basically, if this role is being activated and it doesn't have connectivity with all this other neural data, then new neural data from the moments unfolding where this is independently being activated and contributing to immediacy of life experience, new neural data is filed in accordance with this role in the social engagement system, and all these other roles then do not have access to that new neural data. So this role here is independently operating. My sense of self, my processing of life experience is coming from this one role. And then there's all this other neural wiring throughout my social engagement system, right? But I don't have instinctive unconscious access to that. Then new moments are going to be filed over here with this role, and these portions of neural wiring, creating uniquely individualized sensations of self and processing of life, are not going to have access to this new neural data. When the roles within the social engagement system continue developing and expanding independently of one another, there may develop a variety of health challenges. One example is amnesia. If I'm here and I can access this neural data, then I don't have access to any of this neural data, and I forget about these portions of my life and these sensations and these autobiographical pieces of information. I don't have access to these elements of regulatory protocols, etc. And my immediacy of self is coming exclusively from this neural data, but it's all happening unconsciously. So consciously, I don't have awareness of this activity, and it can create a variety of health challenges. Amnesia just being one of many, many examples. When living with this unique neural wiring of the social engagement system, there's a bunch of different things that could happen. There's an infinite amount of potential experiences, but I want to address two in particular. One, what happens when a bunch of different roles are being activated simultaneously? And then the second one is, what happens when things switch from this role to this role without neural connectivity? So the first one, what happens when all these different roles within the social engagement system are being simultaneously activated? Okay, so you've got this complex neural structure, hundreds of trillions of neural networks in the brain, and a bunch more throughout the body. And within the organization of this neural wiring, you've got the social engagement system with all these different roles. And every year of life has added neural data to this complex structure of the brain-body system that provides our sensations of identity and understandings of life to create personal experience, okay? So when there's activation of a bunch of different roles simultaneously, then you have multiple inner realities being simultaneously generated and projected. And it can create so many unique experiences of consciousness. There may feel like there's 10 different people inside of your head all talking at once. There may be psychosis-styled experiences where you're seeing and hearing things that do not immediately exist, as implicit neural data projects information from past moments into the immediate reality, but consciousness can't automatically distinguish that. I'm not going to look at this and be like, okay, I see a picture frame on the wall that I logically know is not there. Clearly, this is a projection from a past memory. Like, that process doesn't come up. But that's what can happen in this experience. And so when there's activation of a bunch of different social engagement roles, Okay, so you might have activation of a fight stress response. You might have activation of a flight stress response. You might have activation of physical intimacy. You might have all these different activations of roles within the social engagement system, but each one is pulling its data from a various region of neural wiring that doesn't have connection with any of these other roles. And so then this neural wiring is creating this sense of reality, and this neural wiring is creating this sense of reality, and this neural wiring is creating this sense of reality. And you're here as consciousness, like, oh my God, these like all these different realities simultaneously occurring, and I don't know which one's me, and I don't know which one's real, and I don't know what's what, and this is really terrifying and overwhelming. And this can create so many different kinds of unique experiences. It may be difficult to be in the physical present moment because there's so much noise going on. The noise is coming from memories, because memories don't exist to store the past. Memories are not like, this is what happened then. Neural wiring of memories is like, this is how I understand what's happening right now, and this is how I understand the potentials of what might next occur. And so you have all of this noise inside because these different portions of neural wiring don't have connection with one another. Disrupted attachment development caused these different roles within the social engagement system to develop independently and operate independently of one another. So then now this portion of neural wiring is saying this is what reality is. And then this portion of neural wiring is saying, no, I don't know what you're thinking over there, but this is what reality is because I have access to this neural data. And then this one over here is like, you guys are both nuts. This is what reality is. Like, come on, get your stuff together. Like, clearly, this is what reality is. And it's because these different regions of neural wiring are providing different types of unconscious navigation. For example, how do I know that this is a hand? If I didn't have memory data, I would not instinctively know that this is a hand. And I'd be like, oh my God, what is this thing? But because I have memory data, I say this is a hand, this is my hand, and I can move my hand, and it's helpful to pick up a cup and drink water out of. I have an instinctive understanding of what this thing is because of my neural wiring, because of memories. And so we understand all the different factors of our reality, our internal sense of self and our external sensation of reality, based on how vibrational signals are being translated through our neural data and generating and projecting sensations regarding identity and experience. And so this portion of neural wiring, without connection to any others, will create its own uniquely individualized sense of self and understanding of life experience. And if you have dozens or maybe even hundreds of roles within the social engagement system that are operating independently of one another, but being simultaneously activated, then there's going to be a whole bunch of different understandings of reality simultaneously occurring, multiple inner realities simultaneously being projected. And this can feel like racing thoughts, intrusive thoughts, different kinds of dissociation, mind-body disconnectivity. It can feel like there's 20 different people living inside of your head and you don't know which one's you. It can create all kinds of unique experiences, but it stems from this unique neural wiring of the social engagement system because of disrupted attachment development. The other fascinating thing that can happen with this is what happens then when roles within the social engagement system shift or switch from this role to this role. So you got this organization of neural wiring connected with these memories, and it has this sense of self, and it has these kinds of sensations, and it has this understanding of life, and it's affiliated with this style of brain-body activity and different regulatory patterns and protocols. But then you've got this like totally different other region over here, and it has a completely different kind of sense of self, connected with completely different memory data, connected with totally separate, distinct, unique styles of brain-body activity and operations. Okay, so life is coming from here, but then a vibrational signal comes in and activates this neural data that doesn't connect with what's over here. Then you get dissociative shifts or switches of consciousness. And it can feel like a train being lifted from its tracks and moved over here to another track. There's like this jolt of reality. And it might be sudden or it might be prolonged, just depending on vibrational signals from the outside world and styles of neural wiring in the inside world. A shift or a switch can be in nanoseconds or it can take hours, just depending on these variables. And so when it jumps from here to here, in a dissociative shift, then it redirects neural wiring, providing interpretations of self and life. And this can feel very disorienting or anxiety provoking. When there's a dissociative switch of consciousness, then it's not just adjusting the neural data of memories, it's adjusting styles of brain-body operation. And you could switch from engagement of one end of the autonomic nervous system to the way far other end. And then everything from blood flow and oxygen flow and muscular engagement and processing of sensory data, all of it changes. And again, it can happen in nanoseconds or it can take many, many hours, but a dissociative shift changes the neural wiring, adjustment of the neural wiring activation that's creating sensations of self and life. And so it creates a change in the unconscious mind. But then a dissociative switch adjusts the neural wiring engagement and engagement of brain-body regulatory patterns and protocols. And in addition to like anxiety and disorientation and stuff, a switch can actually be physically painful. There might be pains behind the ears or different headaches or different muscle tension patterns. There could be a bunch of different physical things that cause discomfort or actual pain when a dissociative switch occurs. And it's because vibrational signals are suddenly changing the activity of neural data in all these different regions that don't have connection with one another. And so there's all of this neural wiring over here, but then a vibrational signal is like, that's not getting processed here. I need to go activate this data to effectively process this new vibrational signal. And then this disengages and this engages, and the whole brain and body are like, oh my God, I'm another person. And everything that makes you a person, your sense of self, your understanding of who you are, your understanding of the world, your understanding of who you are in relation to orientation and time and space, the way that circulation is flowing, respiration is flowing, digestion is flowing, blood's flowing, oxygen's flowing, muscles are engaging, facial features are naturally occurring, vocal vibrations are naturally and instinctively enunciating themselves. Everything that makes a person changes because the neurobiological activity is radically adjusting within the neural wiring of the social engagement system. Shifts or switches of consciousness occur when various styles of vibrational signals or pieces of stimulus activate distinct social engagement or disengagement roles, or basically different regions of neural wiring, and cause an adjustment unconsciously in the way that the sense of self is understanding its own being, and the way that life is being automatically processed, or the way that neural activations are creating uniquely individualized experiences for parts of consciousness. And this happens beyond all awareness and control, and it has to do with the way vibrational signals or stimulus are activating the neural wiring unconsciously because of unique order within the neural wiring of social engagement and disengagement roles. These unique styles of neural activity can disrupt the processing of stimulus, and at individual moments there may be access to a limited sense of self, like you have access to this part of who you are, but you don't really know about all these other parts, and or stimulus might not be effectively processed. And this can generate a variety of health challenges, like what happens when you can't accurately sense something that's touching your skin? Let's say, for example, you're taking a hot dish out of the oven and your skin accidentally grazes the side of the pan. When the mind and the body are completely connected, the response time will occur instantaneously. And within a nanosecond, there are signals happening where the skin feels the heat and the burn and the pain of that, and that's being processed and translated, and instantaneously the hand moves away from it.
okay, with that profound mind-body connectivity and effective flows within all of this miraculous activity, there's an instinctive nanosecond response time, okay? But if that's not happening, then there won't be that response time. The hand might stay where it's making contact with this really hot pan, and without that instinctive response time, there may be a very severe burn that happens. Because the skin wasn't like, oh my goodness, I'm being burned right now. Help, I'm in distress. Oh, okay, let me help you. Let's move that away. That information wasn't unconsciously flowing. And so the skin's just there and the mind doesn't know about it. So there's no response time. And there may be a very severe burn instead of just gently grazing the pan. Just as one of infinite examples. There's a bunch of different stuff that can come up when sensory data is not being effectively processed and translated into personal experience. Personal experience can then kind of happen in bits and pieces in relation to your sense of internal identity and or external reality. I explore more about potential health challenges arising from unique order of neural wiring within the social engagement system in thesis statement number 10. So please stay tuned for that. Along with physical health challenges, there may be an infinite myriad of other implicit battles or mental, emotional, action patterned, behavioral, or relational challenges that arise from this unique order of neural wiring within the neurobiological social engagement system. For example, if automated translations of reality are exclusively stemming from the neurobiological social engagement role of emotional intimacy, then having emotional connections with other people is going to be the top priority according to how neural wiring is translating life, including identity and experience. And there won't be this ability, this unconscious ability to take into consideration other elements of personal needs or experience. And so the top priority in that instance is having emotional intimacy with other people. But that might jeopardize other elements of personal needs or boundaries or health. Like you might seek emotional intimacy with other people at the cost of certain regions of health or personal boundaries because of how neural wiring is translating life as these roles engage independently of one another. Another example is what happens when the physical intimacy role within the neurobiological social engagement system engages independently of other regions. Then you might get hypersexualized tendencies because of how neural wiring is automatically translating and processing life experience. And so if there's physical intimacy role within this neurobiological social engagement system, and maybe it's, for example, protecting the self from past sexual trauma, then when that region of data is activating and contributing to automated interpretations of reality, there will be unconscious hypersexualized tendencies. But the conscious self, who's observing different thoughts and feelings and action patterns and desires and sensations and whatever's coming up, isn't going to have access to understanding where that information's coming from. There won't be an innate ability to understand that these roles within the neurobiological social engagement system are operating independently of one another, and because of how the priority within this one role is engaging in affiliation with this neural wiring, that's creating different types of automated sensations and interpretations of reality, from thoughts and feelings and perceptions and desires to automated regulatory protocols within the brain and the body. Like the body itself might have hypersexualized tendencies, even distinctive automated thoughts, and it comes from this unique order of neural wiring that's coping with unconscious traumatic stress lodged in the body. If the role of physical health is engaging independently of emotional health or rest and restitution, especially when it's closely linked with a fight or flight stress response, then there may be excessive exercise without an ability to eat really well and take time for rest and relaxation. And those automated styles of personal experience, thoughts, feelings, action patterns, regulatory protocols, all the different stuff contributing to personal experience, it's stemming from that role, or these roles, if it's linked with a stress response, engaging independently of these other roles. And so you got these roles of rest and restitution and emotional well-being, and they take into consideration your happiness and your ability to feel relaxed and stuff. But those priorities are not being neurobiologically engaged, or they're not unconsciously accessible. And instead, the priority is to exercise and keep moving because you're in a state of stress. And then that information is providing automated interpretations of reality unconsciously, and it's not able to link up with these other potential priorities or these other regions of neural wiring. And so this can create all kinds of different implicit battles where it's affecting relationships with self, relationships with other people, your mental health, your emotional health, the health of your action patterns or decision-making tendencies and abilities or behavior. It can affect all these different regions of implicit health very unconsciously. What's able to be noticed through the conscious awareness is a minuscule fraction of what's actually occurring within the unconscious body-mind. And tapping into these insights can provide invaluable healing journey insights to ignite profound personal power reclamation. I've created a healing journey guide for identifying states of consciousness within unique order of neural wiring within the social engagement system. It really helps. So feel free to check out more about that in the video description below. In summary, my 7th thesis statement is that adverse childhood experiences or early life traumatic stress can cause roles within the neurobiological social engagement system to develop, exist, operate, and continue expanding independently of one another, creating alternate inner realities for various parts of self-essence. Various regions of neural wiring are then not able to effectively connect, communicate, and collaborate, profoundly impacting memory data carrying autobiographical information, emotions and unconscious sensations, action patterns, innate movement programs, approach avoidance tendencies, survival responses, integrative patterns, and regulatory protocols. And each role within the neurobiological social engagement system carries different priorities, and depending on how vibrational signals are activating neural wiring within the neurobiological social engagement system, then information providing navigation and regulation is going to shift and unconsciously adjust itself, affecting personal experience from behind the scenes of consciousness.